Hello guys, this is CodeNCode and this is sixth lecture of Spring Boot backend course. Right? In this course, we are building a backend service for a restaurant app. Right? In the last lecture, in the last two lectures, we have learned how you can add multiple endpoints. Right? We have added endpoint for food items, and then how you can basically do exception handling, the proper way of handling the exception using the controller advices. Right? We have learned that also. Now in this lecture we are going to, since we have added almost all of the endpoint for food items, let's go ahead and see how you can perform tests. Right, I have also told you in the overview of the course that we are going to learn how you can perform tests using Postman. So we are going to write test cases for each endpoint, right, and we are going to test the basically the whole food item APIs end to end, right? So let's see how we can add test cases in the Postman and how we can verify the working of the endpoints properly, right? So let's get started. So as you can see, I've already started the server and we are going to write some test cases for each endpoint in Postman, right? We are going to learn how you can write test cases in Postman, right? So there are different ways you can write test cases. For example, you can write test cases. This is our collection, right, where we are adding all of the APIs, right? So you can write test cases on collection level. Here you can see using the scripts, right? Or you can write test cases for each separate calls, right? And endpoints, right? Here you can see for each endpoint you can click on that, and in the script section of it you can actually write the test cases. So what we are going to test for each endpoint, we are going to write test cases, and for each endpoint we are going to test its functionality. Basically we are going to write test cases to perform basically the black box testing, right? We only know what input we will be providing, we only know what output we are expecting, right? So we are going to write test cases to basically perform the black box testing, right? How do you do that in Postman? Simple. For any endpoint that you want to test, right, go to the script section. There you can see two things, pre-request and post-response. So at both of these places you can write scripts to perform the testing, right? The pre-request scripts will be run before sending a request, as the name suggests, pre-request, right? For the post-response, the script written here will be executed after you got your response, right? So most of the test cases will be performing after we have got a response, right? So what things we can test? So for this endpoint, what it does, it basically adds a food item into the table and returns back its ID, right? So what we can do, we can and of course it returns status code as 201. So the basic test we can write is check whether the returned response was actually 201 or not, right? So to write a test case in Postman, what you do, basically first of all of the test cases are written in JavaScript in Postman, right? So the way you write it is using PM object. PM is Postman and it has everything like request, response, and all the other things, right? So PM dot test, this is the function, right? It expects two parameters. First, the name of the test. This is how you write PM dot test. Now you are going to write a test case. So it expects two parameters. First, the name of the test case. Let's say valid status code. Okay, we are going to test whether the status code is valid or not. So we are expecting that the status code returned should be 201, right? And the second thing, you pass a callback function. Basically this is the name of the test, and second thing you need to provide is the business logic. Basically the task is actually actual code that perform the test, right? So that code you provide as a callback function. So you define function, right? And here is what you write everything, right? So here you see I was already getting a prompt that this is the code I want to write, which is actually true. I wanted to test the status code. So how do you do that? As I said, the PM object contains everything, right? So it also contains the response, right? So PM dot response. Response contains everything, this as well as this, as well as headers and all everything, right? So what I want to test, I want to test whether the the status code is 201 or not. So I'll check PM dot response dot to dot have. So this function I'll call, and then I can call status. So the response to have a status, what is status I'm expecting? 201. So this is the function. I want the response to have status code 201, and this is the test case I have written. So if you run it, as you can see, I have already run the server. If you run it, test case actually passes. Here you can see the test result. The test case is valid status code and it is actually passing. So if we write something else, for example 200 OK, it should fail because the expected response is 201, right? And we are checking that it should be 200, which is wrong, right? So if you write it 201 and test it, it will be valid. So your test case is actually passing, right? So this is the way you write test cases in Postman, right? Let's write some other test cases also. All right, so let's write some other test cases. For example, we have tested that the status code is 201, right? There's one more thing, right? So see, after executing this endpoint, right, this call, we are getting an ID, right? And using this ID, what we are doing, we are calling this also, right, this endpoint using the same ID. So what I want here is that I want to save this ID, right? If I have saved this ID, I can utilize the same ID here in here. I don't have to go ahead, copy this ID, get back to this task, this endpoint, and paste it here, right? I don't want to do that. Instead of it, what I want to do is that whatever ID I'm getting, I should be able to save it somewhere so that I can utilize it later. This is a very common practice, right? So, and clearly this ID will be utilized here in the fourth endpoint, right? Fourth request which we have added here. So how you can do that? Actually, whenever you are getting a response or result, you can actually save parts of it, and there are different ways you can do it. Either you can save it as a local variable, you can save it as a global variable, you can store it as the what is this, collection level variable, right? There are so many ways, or environment level variable. So whatever variables you want to save or you already have saved, you can see here. You see here variables in the request. If you click here, you can see environment variables, nothing, collection variable 4, right? Global and vault are 0. So we have collection level variables and those are 4, right? If I go back here, if I click on the collection, if I go to the variable, there's nothing. I think the thing is that this is not updated, right? The thing is, you can click on the collection, check the variable section, it is empty, right? So what I want to do is that once the request is successful, of course I'm going to get the UUID of the food item. I want to save it so that I can utilize the same ID here, right, to fetch the object by ID, right? So how we can do that? You can do it very easily using this. Whatever response, this is basically part of the response, right? So whatever response you are getting, you can actually save it, right? So let's say var response is equals to pm.response, but I don't want to save the response directly, but as JSON. The response we are getting is JSON, so I can call pm.response.json. Now this object has my response. So basically this is everything. If you want to verify it, you can simply log it. So in JavaScript you have console.log, which you can utilize here also, and you can try to print the response, right? So you can get the response, and we are getting the response as JSON, right? So you can get it as a JSON object. Now you have it here. Now you can log it. So if we run it, successful execution in the console, you can check here. This is what you are getting back. This is, I was trying to print the response, and this is my response, because this is the response we are getting back from the API, right? The ID. So basically the response contains this ID. I can save it, right? So pm dot collection variables dot set. So whatever variable you want to save, you can save it at different places, right? I told you, either you can save it in the environment. As you can see here, for this collection we have not selected any environment, right? Even though I have one, I have not selected. So you can save the variables in the environment. You can create environment here. You see, you can create environment if you want to, and then you can save variables there. If you have saved variable in the environment, you can use it across the workspace, right? I don't want that. I want to save the variables in a way that I will be able to only access them in this collection. Whatever variable I have for this collection, I don't want those to be accessible in the other collection, right? So what you can do, when you are saving the variables, you can save those in collection variable, right, as a collection variable. So to save a collection level variable, you can call pm.collection variables. You have the collection variables, then you can call the function set to store the value. And how you do it, you pass key value pair. So key, let's say burger id, as we have saved a burger, right, burger. So burger id, and id is this response, right, response. I was logging it here, let's remove it. So what I'm doing here, I'm getting the response, and then I know the response is the id, and I'm saving the id in the collection level variable as burger id. So if you go here, look at the variables, there's nothing. Let's go back here and execute it. See, this is the id we have gotten back, A30E. If you go back here and have a look at here, can I simply refresh it? Should have is this changelog? It should have it here saved. For some reason it's not showing. Let's check here. Okay, burger id is saved. Yeah, A30E. You can see it here. For some reason it's not being updated here. It should have been, and there's nothing I can do to refresh it. Okay, if you know how we can refresh here, we should have been able to refresh it here. Do let me know, right? Otherwise we can clearly see here that the environment level variable burger id is saved, and it is A30E, which is the response, which is the returned id, right? So this way you can actually save variable for later use, right? Now since I have this burger id, I can use it here in fetch food item by id. How I can do that? You remember we have to pass id, food item /get/id. So the id I can fetch from the collection level variable using this, okay, curly braces twice. Inside of it you can name the variable, which is burger id, right? If you hover over it, it will actually show the value also. So if I send the request now, you see I'm getting the burger, right? So this way you can save it using pm.collectionVariables.set, and this way you can fetch it, right? All of the variables you can fetch using the same method, be it environment level variable, be it local variable or collection level variable, right? You can do it here. So now we have written test cases for the first endpoint. Let's go ahead and write test cases for the second endpoint, which is fetch all items. Fetch all item, we don't need anybody. Let me remove that. None. Save. Let's write some test cases here. All right, so let's go back and see how many objects we have saved. So these many objects we have saved, right? Let's go ahead and delete all of them. Nothing, right? Go back to the test cases. So what we are going to do, we are going to run these endpoints one by one, right? So first this one will be executed, which will store one food item into the table, right? This one is executed, it will store one item in the food item table, and its id, which is F16 this time. So go here, if you see F16 is there, right? So it is properly saving. So we'll do that, right? We'll save one food item in the table, we'll save its id in the collection variable. Second time this call will be executed, right? And what we can test here is two things. First of all, pm.test, right? Valid status code, and function, provide a function here which will be pm.response .to.have .status 200. Reason, the way we have written this endpoint is that get all returns status okay, which is 200. So I'll be testing that it returns 200 okay. So if I run this, test case passes, right? Other thing is that we know this will be executed after after request number 2. Request number 2 will add one food item into the table. So when we are at request number 3, we know that the size that we'll get back is only one. The size we'll get back of the response is only 1, right? So we can verify that also. pm.test, let's write another test to verify that the response we are getting is a list, right? Clearly an array of object in JSON, right? And the array size should be 1 only, because request number 3 will be executed after request number 2. So we can test that here. So verify content size, content array size. Okay, this is my test case. Again, I'll add a function and verify it here. Okay, so I'll store the response here. Response is equals to pm.response.json. Now that I have a JSON response, I can check its length, right? This is basically an array, right? Because the response you are getting is actually an array. So this is an array, right? So I can verify that pm.expect is another function using which you can verify things. So it takes one argument. What do you want to test? I want to test the length. Response dot length, this is the thing that I want to test. What the value you want it to have, dot equals. Okay, I want it to be equal to 1, right? So if I run it, you see there are 2 tests which are executed and both of them pass. Verify the status code, valid. Verify the content, valid. Let's make sure that it is correct. Okay, instead of 1, let's try to verify with 2. If I send the request, I'm getting this assertion fail. Assertion error is that expected 1 but it is equal to 2, right? Sorry, yeah, we were expecting 2 but we are getting 1 only. So let's change it, right? So one thing I am verifying that the length of the array should be 1 only, right? That is one thing. We can also verify the name if you want to. Name, okay, pm.expect. What we want to verify is that response is an array, so you can get the 0th element, which will be this object, right? This object, right? And here you can have dot name, right? Dot name and dot equals burger. These are the 2 things we are verifying, and you see both of the test cases actually pass. All right, so we have tested that the size should be 1, size of the array. Name should be, the object name should be burger, because that's exactly what we are adding. If you want, you can try to add the test case for price also. I'm leaving this for you, right? So this test case will execute, then this, and let's come here, fetch by ID, right? Clearly using this ID we are fetching it, and we are getting a response which is a JSON object. What we can verify here? We can verify the ID. First of all, it should be the same ID. The ID of the response should be the same ID which is saved here. So one thing we can verify that. The second thing we can verify is that the status code should be 200, right? And then we can verify the name, right? So pm.test, I'm going to name it fetch by ID test, right? And then function, right? First thing I'm going to verify is the status code is 200. So pm.response.to.have.response status to be 200. Okay, once we have verified that, of course I'm going to get the JSON data. So JSON data is equals to pm.response.json. So basically I'll get a JSON object, because this is the response we are getting, right? So basically this is the JSON object which represents this. Now I can add other things, other verifications, like pm.expect that the ID, right? So JSON data dot ID dot equals to the ID we have here, burger ID, right? Okay, I can't directly get it like that, so let's try this. Pm dot collection variables dot get, right? Okay, first of all remove this. Pm dot collection variables dot get, and what we want to get is burger ID, right? So the ID that we are getting in the response should be equal to the ID that we have saved in the collection variables. So if we run this, yeah, it passes because it's exactly the same, right? So we are verifying that we should get a 200. Okay, we are verifying that the ID is same as the ID using which we are fetching it. So two things. Third, we can try to verify the price, right? So pm.expect JSON data dot price, right? We have a price field dot equals how much is it? 69.99, right? Let's see. We run the test. It works perfectly fine. So we have added test cases for add food item, fetch food item by ID, delete food item, right? So in the delete food item, as you can see, in the body we were passing the ID, right? And again, when you are passing anything in the ID, you can again use the variables here, right? That's exactly what we are doing here. So we want this this ID to be deleted, right? Food item with this ID to be deleted. If the request is successful, if you come here for delete endpoint, if the request is successful, we will get 200. Okay, so let's add a test case for that. 200. Okay, pm.test valid status code, right? Function added here, which is pm.response.to.have.status 200. Okay, this is the only thing we can verify, because from here we are getting nothing. We are getting a void response, right? So we can go back here, I can verify it. Done. All right, so this is the only test case I believe we can add here. If you think we can add more test cases for the delete endpoint, do let me know in the comment section, right? And finally we have update food item, right? So we'll have ID here, and then we would want the value to change. Let's make one change here, right? Let's bring it up, right? Make it number 5, right? So we'll update first, delete later, right? Delete should be the last one. Okay, let's go here, right? So if we check here, there's nothing because we have already deleted the response. So let's go for the first endpoint, add a burger, right? Then perform the second test, working fine. Third test, working fine. For the fifth one, my bad. Yeah, this is the fourth one, named 5. This, what we want to do, we want to update it. Instead of passing it here, we can directly pass the burger ID, right? Instead of hard coding it, we already know we have saved the ID in the collection variable. You can utilize again this curly braces and write burger underscore ID, right? And if you hover over it, you can actually see the ID, right? So the food item that we have added, we want to update the same one, and instead of fries, it is a burger. Yeah, and its price, of course I want to add a valid price, let's say 85.55, right? Creation date, I'm not going to change that. Creation date, let me just verify it. Creation date is this one, let it be the same. Okay, and while you are adding the test cases, you might have gotten an idea that what are the things and validation we should add here also, and that's what it helps you. So first of all, let's go back here, verify it. So we have this with the burger, with the name burger, price 69.99, and creation date as 2025 updation date is null, right? After we run this, it will be updated, right? And its price will be 85.55. So if I run it again, clearly 85.55, and we have also updated the update date, right? Simple thing. So what is the response of it? Is the updated updated food item. So basically the food item, the test cases we can add is it should have the same ID as the one we have passed. This is one of the tests you can add. Second thing is status code should be 200. Third is the price, whatever price you have set here, you can verify it that the updated price have been reflected there, right? So in this script, what you can do is pm.test Name I'll add update food item test. Then I'll provide the function for the test case. First thing first, pm.response to have status 200. First thing first. Second thing is its name should be burger. pm.expect expect the, okay, I need to get the JSON data first. Variable JSON data is equals to pm.response.json. Right, once we have the JSON data, we can access the fields. I want to access the name field. JSON data dot name should be equals to burger. All right, first thing. Second thing is ID should be the same as the one we have sent, right? So pm.expect JSON data dot ID dot equals pm dot collection variables dot get and burger ID. That should be, ID should be the same. And another thing, the price should have been updated. So expect JSON data dot price dot equals, and price is 85.55. Okay, yeah, you can, one thing you can add yourself as an exercise, verify that the updation date is not null anymore. If you remember, when you fetch it earlier, update date used to be null, right? Because we haven't updated at all. Here, after running this, update date should not be null. Very critical part of it. So I'm leaving it as an exercise for you, right? To check whether update date is null or not. So if we run this test case, it passes. All of the checks actually pass, right? Once we are done with the test case of update, we can actually delete it, right? Delete it, done. Working just fine. And after performing all of the test cases, you see there won't be anything left in the database. So you are performing all of the test cases one by one, right? Checking it, and then once you are done with the test cases, your database is left with no residue, right? At the end, you are deleting it, which is a good thing. If you come back here and let's say you want to perform all of the tests, you don't want to perform tests one by one, right? You don't want to do that. Okay, let me just save things first. This was not saved, this was not saved, this was not saved, and this was not saved. I've saved everything, right? Yeah, if you want to perform all of the test cases, execution of all of those at once without going to each endpoint separately and executing the test case manually, what you can do, you can actually either click on this, run the whole collection, or click on the three dots. You will get something like run. Yeah, it shows that all of the execution order, first hello world will be executed, then this, then that. That's exactly the order that we are expecting, right? You can also tell how many times it should perform. It should run the whole collection, right? I want to leave it at 1, and if you run all of it, right, it's going to perform the test cases. And as you can see, it shows you the result here. Number of iterations only 1, duration 1 second for 58 milliseconds, all tests 6, and here is the result. Passes, 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 everything passes, right? Failed 0. If you want to perform more than 1 iteration, you can actually pass in the runner, right? And you can basically see if you are trying to execute each test cases 1000 times, each endpoint 1000 times, how much time it is taking, right? You can get all of those results. So this is how you can perform, how you can add test cases and perform testing on the endpoints you have added in Postman, right? If you have any doubts, do not let me know in the comment section. If not, that's fine too, right? So yeah, this is it for this lecture. Thank you guys for watching, and till the next video drops, keep coding. Thank you.